Hey guys, my guest tonight, Greg Forth, has a story to tell about an island that may still have ancient humans living on it. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Well, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I'm doing okay. It's been kind of a weird day, and Murphy's Law is still following me around. It's been happening, since last Thursday or whatever it was? Because I have a sneaking suspicion for some reason my email did not send the link to our guest for tonight. So I'm going to give him an extra couple minutes here, and if that's the case, then I'll try and apologize all over myself and book him another day, and we'll try and get him on, like I said, another day. And I apologize to all you guys for it, okay? I've just been having a lot of computer glitches and stuff this past week, and it's my poor, overworked, and underpaid computer. So I'll probably, if he does not come on, I just sent him the link. If he does not come on, then I will I'm going to read from the book. Okay, is that okay with everybody? And then I promise I will try to get him back on. I will apologize all over myself because everything was confirmed, and yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll see if he comes on tonight. Wow, I mean, this is how my week's been, and let me check something. One more thing. Anyway, my name is Charlotte. See, we confirmed, but I don't think I sent the link out to him for some reason. Blasted all to hell. And he's in Canada too, so I'll try to get him back on. I'll apologize over myself. But anyway, my name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host. I'm the village idiot tonight. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state, and that means we can help you. But it might take a couple hours to get to you, but we can help you. All right, we've been doing this for almost 25 years, so we've got a lot of experience. And we're not one of these teams that's just going to come out and say, oh, yes, you have a ghost. We will thoroughly investigate your property and see what's going on. All right. We also have affiliates in Oregon, Washington. I was going to say Utah. See, that's how my mind is today. Oregon, Washington. Did I miss anybody? Nevada and Hawaii. Okay. I tell you, it's been Murphy's Law for me. Anyway, welcome everybody. And if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see tonight, please hit that follow button. I'd really appreciate it, especially if you're watching from California Haunts Ghostly Events or from my own page. Please hit that follow button, and please hit that like button. If you're watching from YouTube, there's a little ghost in the bottom right-hand corner, and if you hit that button, he will come up with a nice little red button to hit, and that would subscribe you to our videos. We have more than 450 videos over there, and I like to do different topics, like tonight's topic. Well, what tonight's topic was going to be. So check it out, because I think there's something in there for everybody. Again, we'll give him a couple more minutes. I apologize profusely, because he did confirm, and I thought I had sent everything out, because the gentleman for tomorrow night got his, because I'll go down and do them in order when I send them out. So who knows? Maybe something jammed up my internet, because I was having trouble. Oh, here he is. And my guest is here. All right. Well, that's promising. Anyway, tonight's show is going to be interesting. I am fascinated by archaeology and anthropology. Always have been. And my guest tonight has a unique story to tell about an island. And I'll let him give you the details. But we're not talking about Sasquatch. That's not what we're talking about tonight. Okay, we're talking about actual human ancestor on this island. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in, and let's do this. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I am so sorry. I thought it went out.
I may have been late clicking a button at the bottom of the page saying enter studio or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get the link earlier in the week?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I thought I had. I was all panicky today because I couldn't see it. Well,
yeah. No.
I hate things like that.
It worked fine.
All right. Tell me about you, sir.
What's to say? Well, I'm a retired anthropologist. I left the University of Alberta back in 2019. I guess that's not so long ago now. But no, before that, I was working as a field researcher on an Indonesian island. Well, a couple of Indonesian islands actually, but the one we're concerned with now is called Flores. Mm-hmm. It's a Portuguese name. Yeah, it's the official name still of the Indonesian island. I began working there in 1984. Before that, I'd worked on neighboring islands. But yeah, so 1984 was when I first, started my research on Flores, and I hadn't actually been working there for very long. Meeting people, talking to people. When I happened to hear, I quite incidentally, I wasn't asking about this, but I happened to hear about these beings, hominoids, as I call them, human-like beings. That well, in the first instance, in the first place I was working, I was told that they used to live locally, but no longer did. Anyway, some years after that, I heard of other hominoids on the same island, and different part of the island, which were reckoned to have been around much more recently, and in fact, still occasionally to be seen by people. Well, as I said, 1984 was when I began. In 2004, which is 20 years later,
Hmm.
I heard about the discovery of a fossil creature, a fossil human, if you like, although physically very primitive one, a very small-bodied hominin, which stood not much taller than 3 feet, around a meter. In fact, and when I first heard about it, I heard about this a bit earlier than the press releases in October 2004. I heard about it in the summer of 2004 when I was talking to one of the members of the research team that had excavated these fossils. And I was uh, I was amazed to learn about what they found, because it sounded very much like what Flores villagers were telling me about, some 10 or 20 earlier.
Hmm.
So that's when I kind of began in earnest to look into the subject of the present book. I did write a previous book called Images of the Wild Man in Southeast Asia, and that came out in 2008. But
Wrong one.
the
I flipped it. There.
book I have for a general audience, that's the one. Yeah, and I follow the local description of this particular local creature. I've chosen to call that an ape man. That's exactly how it's described.
Hmm.
There are, despite the man, there are female members of relation as well. It's just that ape man is a pretty well known kind of inaccurate as it might sometimes be. But no, I mean, I really in earnest, I began to these eight men, what I call eight men in towards the east central end, or rather towards more towards the eastern end of Flores than some of the earlier old men I'd heard about. And I go back and study what people had to say about these them in beginning what about 2014. So I got a good 5 years. I'm in there, and last went back to Flores in 2018, and the result is the book, between ape and human.
Now we're not talking about, like I was telling the audience, we're not talking about something like Bigfoot, or how close
Mm.
are these people supposed to be to, like, say, Lucy?
Yeah, oh, that's a very good question. Introduction, you called them human ancestors, which it is not incorrect, but the problem is the term human. They were well, if we take as a measure um, the fossil hominin, which my ape men very much look like, yeah, that's called Homo floresiensis. So it's not Homo. There's even a debate as to whether it should be called Homo, because indeed it looks respects like something like an australopithecine,
Okay.
which is what. So the maximum height for floresiensis, it seems to be a little bit in excess of a meter, which is not much more than 3 feet for an adult, which is by modern human standards is very small. I mean, there are people who are 1.5 meters tall.
Mm-hmm.
1.5 meters, about 5 feet. I think that's that's quite small. But this would be something that's notably small and shorter than that. Um, Again, some of the features of the fossil ape men very closely resemble. Hence my interest.
Mm-hmm.
Some features are more reminiscent of great apes, like chimpanzees, or even minor apes like gibbons,
Sure.
than they are of members of the genus Homo. So indeed, I mean, for paleoanthropologists, when this fossil was discovered 17 years ago or so now, it was a real shocker, yeah, for anthropology, well, for science in general, and there were people who dismissed it as being, like a diseased. A deceased human, some kind of undiscovered pygmy, but well, a pygmy you could say it was. But indeed, it's a far more primitive species than any kind of Homo sapiens.
I would say,
So,
yeah, it would.
continue on that. I really should focus more on.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
The Leo people who I write about throughout my book. In fact, in a way, the book Leo people and what you can understand from what they say, how credible their reports are, other interpretations, and on and on. I focused on a number or over 30 eyewitness they'd seen what they thought was one of these ape men, which goes by their local name of by the way, and so at least 4 chapters of the book are about sightings, most of them first hand rather than second hand, and it's quite remarkable how well. I mean, that they vary somewhat as you do. A number
Mm-hmm.
I dismiss as probably being mistaken identifications of which is the only kind of comparable animal species on the island. But no, most of them do. They fall within a range in terms of height and physical features and so on. And basically, what they're described as a small, standing erect, bipedal creature, walks on two feet, and stands up straight, which is somewhat hairy bodied. Not as much difference between head hair and as there is in modern humans, for example, and indeed it's in terms of other features that they describe. It fits very well with the anthropologists have been able to reconstruct for the fossil species floresiensis, which, by the way, I was initially they thought that the dates that applied to the remains, the most recent date was about 12,000 years ago. Through another kind of testing that's been pushed back to 50 or 60,000 years ago. I always emphasize, as I do in the book, that is the only, in fact, the only site at which this species has been discovered. Well, we're talking about a fairly large island here. I think some of the size of Connecticut. I don't know if that's right, but I'll take their word for it. That's impossible. Well, it is impossible that the thing would, the creature would live that, in a single place, and in a single cave. In fact, is where they found remains of, what is it now, about 13 different individuals, ranging over quite years in terms of age.
When was the last sighting that the people of the island had of this of one?
Yeah, the last sighting is not what I consider the best sighting, which is to say the most credible sighting, but it would have been in 2017 or 2018. I got a very detailed report in 2017. When I went back the following year and spoke to the people who reported seeing this, they said in it again, and then I added a few details which didn't particularly, true. But just taking the sighting from the earlier year, 2017, it seemed, like something was seen, indeed, and then it was to to the description and to this more image they have depiction of the ape men. That was one of my better sightings because it involved two or more people. In that case, a husband and a wife. The wife who saw the creature closer up and better than her husband. In fact, it seems he was a bit more afraid of it than she was.
Now, where do these sightings take place? It's not down where the villages are, is it? It's up in the mountains.
No, that's right. Actually, the last one I described was at the edge of a field near a stream, on the side of which is a forested area. So it wasn't really in the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't in or near a village. You're quite right. The ones with the better details, which are in chapter 9 of my book, were indeed seen in I won't say desert, but in or near jungle. A couple actually, two of those involved dead specimens, which were covered near a road, but a very lonely stretch of road going through. The first of those two occurred in the 1970s. The creature observed was dead because it was hit by a truck, in which the observer I was able to speak to was riding at the time. Unfortunately, by that date, I wasn't able to contact any of the other people on board. The driver at that time was already long dead, and the two or three other people they couldn't be traced. But for I explain in the book the witness that seemed, particularly credible. He was a man from another region of Leo, as a matter of fact, who at the time of the accident had never heard of these creatures before. It was the driver who identified as a Laihoa, an ape man. So yeah, partly for that reasons as well. This informant, this witness seemed quite credible. As that may suggest, very indeed, as that may suggest, I need to analyze and interpret, of course, all these sighting reports. Something of a skeptic myself, necessarily. I try to find other explanations, other interpretation of what people may have seen. But as I conclude the book, really, all things considered, the best explanation is that a good many, if not all, of the people I spoke to said they'd seen an ape man, had indeed seen something that corresponded to pretty close to this description, which, as I said, it tends to be consistent from person to person, although not the same. So we're not talking about something like Mickey Mouse, who always looks the same,
Right.
regardless who's talking about him, sort of thing.
Well, when you talk about the size of the area that this island is, these things could hide indefinitely in the in the hills.
Yeah, no, I should have made clearer earlier, probably, that they are their territory is high mountains, high mountain forests. Most of the credible sightings indeed took place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As a scientist, do you think it's conceivable that something could have survived that long?
That's a good question. I well, when I'm asked that sort of question, I always think in an article on the book that came out a few months ago, quoting a paleoanthropologist who thought the chances of this creature, or something like Homo floresiensis, the fossil though, surviving on Flores for this long was, I think he said, pretty close to zero. That sounds all a bit statistical and probabilistic, but there is that would be very difficult to gauge. I mean, if we're talking about paleontology, of which paleoanthropology is a branch. I mean, I discovered all the time, either as fossils or indeed as living specimens, that were never expected. So it's not easy, if indeed possible at all, to predict the past, as it were, or predict the discovered what might be discovered next. Of course, mean, if you look at the environment, sorts of foods that are available, how something like this might keep out of the way of modern humans, quite conceivable. My critic, who I mentioned earlier, the 2 million people on Flores, which I think is about correct. But the fact is that most of the largest local populations are on the western side of the island, whereas I'm talking about the Leo ape man. I'm talking about an area, closer to the east. Also, most modern humans who live on Flores to the coast, if not right on the coast. So it's not as though the population is evenly. Yeah, there are places where people rarely, if ever, go. This is a small conformity to the descriptions and also, of course, the fossil. So its dietary requirements wouldn't be anything like Homo sapiens,
Mhm.
and it well, again, according to both the descriptions and according to what we know about the fossil, it was largely, if not entirely, vegetarian. Now, there's a lot of plant food in the forests, and part got protein in the form of insects and things like and crustaceans and and on, which like this grubs, which something like the ape man could of. In fact, local people themselves nowadays, the villagers, their diet is much more Catholic than like uh, like grubs and yeah, insects generally. Yeah, are eaten sometimes as famine food, but sometimes because they it's good. Um, if you consider that lobsters are just a big insect, then you'll probably see what I mean. But of course, we have ideological, cultural problem eating things that aren't fish or fowl or red meat.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I don't. I mean, the food it doesn't carry a lot of a lot of weight. One difference, of course, between these creatures and the Bigfoot described is that well, Bigfoot is much larger, so you would expect it to be much more visible. All other things being held, as something just 3 feet tall, is to to hide much more easily from
Mhm.
modern humans. And
Mhm.
also, they, yeah, all evidence suggests they were good climbers, climb trees. So, again, another kind of hiding place. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I would be quite stunned if next week, say, somebody actually found one and we heard about it. Somebody from the outside who could bring it to um, bring the specimen of the scientific community.
Mhm.
Um, Shocked, but not entirely surprised. I mean, it would make sense if a lot of the information I've recorded and written about.
Yeah, that was my next question about the food because obviously, I mean, if it was capable of lighting fires, the native people on the island would have seen the fires and then gone up to investigate to see what it was. So it had to be eating something, vegetarian or raw.
Um, yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, no, there's no. Well, local people describe the ape men as being without culture or technology, so
Mhm.
or weapons, nor in fire. As regards to the fossil Homo
Mhm.
floresiensis, there's no sort of confirmed, absolutely clear evidence for them having used fire. Indeed, they may have. In regard to things like stone tools, well, that is not impossible. Well, for the ape men either. I mean, if they did have the tools of stone, they'd be not terribly sophisticated, and local people would even if they found them, wouldn't recognize them as for what they are. So again, yeah, in terms of technology and the fossil and what these people described to me. So of course the fossil is kind of key because the ape men and their cousins in other parts of the island before the Homo floresiensis fossils were discovered. If it had been the other way around, then there might just be a possibility of news of Homo floresiensis, getting to villages on Flores, which wouldn't be likely, but it's still a kind of possibility. Whereas in this case, of course, it's not possible because I heard about the beings before the bones were yeah, I mean that puts another difference with Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Not to say that is completely impossible either. But there are pre-sapiens human fossils that have ever been discovered in the New World, in either North or South America. It has been speculated that that the Bigfoot ascendant of something like what's called giganto, literally translated means giant ape. So far as we know, that's always the qualification of these things, isn't it? So far as we know, was entirely Asian. Although suggested it could perhaps have got across the Bering Land, survived and got across the Bering Land bridge. But we haven't found any evidence for it yet in North. So yeah, another difference. I mean, I go on about this comparison as I have done somewhere, not necessarily in this book, but in an earlier book. I think when it comes to the ability of hoaxing and so on, that is more of that rings true more a Western English-speaking culture than of the people I work with. Not to say that they always tell the truth, or that they always represent things honestly. But they in this new book, as a matter of fact, where's the motive in creating falsehoods? And since they're all talking about the same thing, there'd have to be a virtual conspiracy afoot to something like that. So yeah, no, I mean, there's all these control arguments that one needs to consider. In North America, people have made money or try to make money. Whereas again, I mean, that's not a feature of that particular cultural landscape. So yeah, they're not as similar as might at first appear, is I guess my main point.
Well, there was a report, and they didn't know whether it was a Bigfoot or not, but they did find a creature that was around 4 feet tall here in the United States. And the report is that they captured it and did all this stuff in it. So the realm, thinking about this what you're talking about on this island, I don't think that's out of possibilities. I think there's a good chance.
Yeah. This was a recent, 4 foot.
I
Bigfoot?
think it was
Or,
back in the late 1800s they found it. And there were newspaper reports on it, and
oh,
they had.
right. Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah, no, I read about that in my earlier book that it was found
Mhm.
in British Columbia, as a matter of fact,
Yes. Yeah.
Vancouver,
Yeah.
back in and yeah, no, that is really quite an interesting story. I know that in the past, certainly before me, and hadn't been able to think or any other explanation of what it was. I know
Mhm.
there's an anthropologist who wrote a book some years ago, sort of debunking Bigfoot basically, and
Mhm.
he mentioned not in great detail, but he did mention that particular case, and he suggested it was a chimpanzee that had escaped from a circus. 1884. There were circuses certainly in those days, but not in the interior of British Columbia. This was near not really close, but somewhat near a town called Yale, which was just
Mhm.
a camp. That the people who saw this thing, well, they were railway workers. They were working on the Canadian Pacific Railway,
Mhm.
um, and so yeah, no, we're really in the middle of nowhere. I can't imagine. That's something I looked into too, but I can't imagine where they would have with chimpanzees. But the small size is interesting because I think I think I'm right saying that there have been one or two other sightings on the West America of
Mhm.
what were Bigfoot or taken to be Bigfoot, but they were small.
Mhm.
So, for example, the one in '84, which they named Jacko, by the way.
Yes.
Some people since have interpreted this as a young Bigfoot,
Mhm.
but there's nothing particularly juvenile. So yes, I know. I did suggest, and wouldn't stick with it, but I did suggest in the book that Bigfoot has kind of grown over the years, or it seems to. Yeah, it's just one way of one way that we certainly report having seen things going 4 feet. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
It's interesting to hear you talk about Bigfoot because the views of anthropologists over the years haven't been that great about it. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it. How is
Mm,
as far as other anthropologists, how do they look at Bigfoot? I mean, do they look at it as a joke, or how what's their view of it?
well, yeah, I think the first answer to that question, how they look at it, is that they don't look at the kind of topic that I think is mostly avoided. Um, it, um, it remains a mystery because I think as with a mystery hominoids, a
Mhm.
lot of the majority of the descriptions by people who say they've seen it are quite you're not talking about something that's colored purple and has three heads, or you know whatever.
Mhm.
You're talking about a very big ape, or ape-like creature. but well, privately as opposed to publicly, you'd find people who would say that well, that there seems to be something here, but it is not written about very often by anthropologists, except it is an imaginary cultural which serves people as a symbol of the wild and a way of expressing certain feelings about wild places, wildness, or what. I'm just kind of just kind of constructing an example there, or just to something's been written about the Yeti, as a matter of fact. So that would be the approach, that it is imaginary, like telling stories about it for some reason or to be explained, I guess, sort of psychologically, rather than as something that it.
Right. So getting back to the I'm going to say being, because we don't know what it is exactly on the island. Is there ever going to be a time when maybe you will put together a group of people to go see if you can find it, or are you guys just going to leave it alone up there?
Well, well, in some ways, it probably would be kinder just to leave it alone. But I personally was doing that for dare I say, for reasons of age. I do have a few health problems as well. Other people, physically more able people, have expressed an interest, but nothing is planned yet, or at least nothing involving is planned yet. But I think it is you said it's difficult to know how to talk about this. It is. Rather like the definition of human. It's a bit tricky when you go way back in time, or when you start talking about things that are clearly anatomically modern humans. But I think the findings of the book should, one would hope, would open people's minds, so that anybody researching on the island in the area of paleoanthropology, archaeology, or whatever, would keep their and indeed, I mean, I think it would be reasonable for field zoologists, people with the relevant expertise, and members of a team, together with people who know how to move about it in rough country, to go in search of something like this. If nothing else, they'd probably discover some new species of snakes or birds on Flores. So of course, I mean, there's another thing with science, biological science. People don't typically go out in search of things. There is a very good theoretical reasoning out of science, a very good natural science, a good theoretical reason to believe that it's there, and that kind of thing happens in very few cases. And so yeah, I mean, another aspect of my study concerns the organization of science. What kind, what doesn't, what's funded, and what's not. as I said, the book is largely about foreigners, the Leo people in particular, the question always is, well, what they say about certain things that can't be classified as spirits or imaginary beings or whatever, can't simply be categorized in that way. To an extent that their statements, should be accepted as evidence. Even evidence, their own local should be accepted as producing on a par with the evidence produced by academic scientists. And my answer so far is, yeah, well, it really was once careful and one looks at the context and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. And how do the people on the island feel about them?
Yeah, whether they classify them as an animal, although they say they look great, sort of halfway between an ape and a human.
Mm-hmm.
So they classify them as animals, not as humans. That they're rare, according to their own accounts. They're not common. Coming across one, and this is one of the interesting features about some of my eyewitness reports is what people have said about their reactions when they come across this little thing that's clearly not quite. And a great ambivalence, which kind of which does in most cases immediately create fear and anxiety, and it causes people to run away, or at least keep their distance. The ape men themselves apparently don't typically hang around for them either, because they they probably have even better reasons to be scared of modern humans, especially as live with long bush knives or spears or whatever. So yeah, the meetings are usually quite quite. They're actually, well, some people more than others attribute sort of what you might call supernatural qualities to the ape man. They say coming across one can make you ill later on, but that can be linked with the initial reactions they describe as well, or it can be an inference which is neither here an inference partly from the fact that you have seen something that nobody else has seen, but yeah, no, in various places in the recent book, other animals, which are scientifically documented that have a supernatural side to them than the ape man. So just say something is described as having certain magical powers doesn't mean that thing doesn't exist. So there are humans who are described as having magical powers as well, including being able to disappear, whatever. And yet, yeah, nobody would dispute that those people aren't real members of a species called Homo. That there are a number of distinctions that one needs to beware. And I spent a whole chapter talking about whether whether the ape men might be a kind of spirit or supernatural being. And I well, I mean, it kind of helps in this case that the Leo people themselves distinguish spirits from animals, say. So spirits are normally invisible. Hardly anybody's ever seen one. And on and on. Whereas this doesn't apply to the ape men. Yeah, it's not a good argument that these are spiritual beings, because they sound anything like the way that the people, real spiritual beings, you might say, that they as existing.
Absolutely. Was it hard getting the people to talk to you, or were they very, the ones that had witnessed it, or were they more willing?
Ooh. Well, but both when I started on Flores in 1984, and then when I started to look in the sometime later, both occasions I was fluent in and I was familiar with the language of Sumba Island, which is an island not too far away. I already knew something from reading from my experiences on Sumba as well, about local culture and language too. It was pretty for me to adapt, and people didn't have that much trouble, dealing with me, because they could talk to me. That helped a great deal. Well, personally as well, I've always got on with people on Flores and Sumba. I mean, I'm not. My wife and I lived on Sumba as doctoral students in the 1970s. Solid, and we were living in no electricity or running water or anything like that. More or less dressing like local people, certainly eating exactly what they so I didn't have any difficulty. I didn't really adapting. I'm not sure I'd want to do it again at my present age, but certainly in younger years it was not a problem.
What do you say to somebody that is kind of critical of this creature?
You mean people in the West here, or anybody? I mean, I've never really found anybody on Flores who these things don't exist. They may not be particularly interested in them, but nobody gets exercised when they hear people making claims about them. But in the West, I don't know. I mean, I've had some criticism in print over. I can usually reply to it. So I mean, I looking into Bigfoot as a physical creature who have had definite trouble with cops and university administrators and so on. But I haven't had that. I guess I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because I'm dealing with mostly with what people have. Um, there are different ways to interpret that. So, and I do, take. I try to take a broad view and look at various abilities in explaining
Mm-hmm.
what I've been told. So I haven't really had that many critics. I just to qualify that a little bit. I when the book was published first back in May. I got a couple of snide emails from I don't know, people I'd never heard of. One saying something like, well, put anthropology or science or what have you in a bad ability. And I think the other one just suggested I slightly deranged in writing about this and coming to the conclusions I those were the only two. They weren't by people I knew or respected, so I wasn't too bothered. I'm sure many people these days have had much worse anonymous emails.
Well, I believe you. um, what's next for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody can come up with a better argument for the the data, the information that I present and analyze, then I'd be fine. Just recently, as a matter of fact, it's interesting having to answer these questions because I hadn't looked at the book for a while, but I have been working on a kind of a parallel case which
Mm-hmm.
concerns Taiwan, as a matter of fact. And people know this, but the Chinese had actually only been settled on Taiwan for well, a little over 400 years. In fact, the Dutch, believe it or not, actually established an administration before the Chinese. Now, there is an Aboriginal or an indigenous population
Mm-hmm.
on Taiwan, which consists of a number of tribes, Formosan tribes. There are some different languages and so on, and they reached the island 5,000 years ago. I've always been interested in Taiwan because linguistically and to some extent culturally, they are related to Indonesians and Filipinos and Pacific Islanders and so on. In fact, it
Mm-hmm.
seems that that language family originated in Taiwan. Anyway, the point I want to make is that have stories, myths, and legends about dwarfs, as they're usually known, small people who lived in caves, were hunter gatherers, and very adept at bows and arrows, and so there's some more fantastic of the way they're presented in the myths,
Mm-hmm.
but going back years now, people, anthropologists, in fact, in the first instance, suggest dwarfs are sometimes described as dark-skinned as well.
Mm-hmm.
May be related to people who have been called negritos, which means in Spanish, all dark people, small black people,
Mm-hmm.
who are still found living, indeed, in parts of the Philippines, in Malaysia, West Malaysia, on the Malay Peninsula, and into southern China, and they, they're taller than other people around about, much darker. They don't have as curly and all the rest of it. Well, to make a long story short, just a couple of months ago, about excavations that have been made in eastern Taiwan, which revealed skeletons, crania particularly, skulls that showed the same features as as negritos in the Philippines. And there are also negritos in the Indian Bengal, in the Andaman Islands. Taken by the by this article, announced that, well, our findings solve the mystery. The mystery of these mythical legendary dwarfs. So I've been writing about parallels. There are differences as well, but I've been writing as my mystery hominoids or ape men about as well before the the of a Homo floresiensis. Very interesting. Sometimes similarities, but mostly differences between the way in which the two cases have been treated. So yeah, anthropologists, other scientists, of course, are discovering new things all the time, which quite significantly change people's views on what they're dealing with. In fact, about 5 years ago, there was a written by I guess she's a Chinese Taiwanese on these dwarf legends, and she's very skeptical, as a matter of fact. These could be negritos, but now that they discovered negrito remains on Taiwan, and it looks well, certainly very much more um, likely that the two things are linked.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for coming on. It was wonderful. I learned so much from you.
Okay, well, I hope you will read the book if you haven't already. That other people listening, might find their interest in looking further into the matter. And they've got the title there from the display, and yeah, well, thank you for your interest. And
Absolutely. How can people find you?
how can they find me physically? I'm through the university. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to find me, but no, seriously, I can be contacted through my University of Alberta email address, which is gforth, all one word, and then at ULCA for Canada. So able in if not up from the shelves, then by ordering through any good bookstore, or ordering online, thrift books, Amazon, or whoever.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We'll have to get you on, another time to talk more about this because this is fascinating to me.
No, I look forward to that. Okay, thanks
Okay,
very
sir.
much.
Have a good day. Have a good evening, sir. Okay. Anyway, fantastic show. Learned so much about that creature. You just never know what's still out there, and it's interesting to hear an anthropologist talk about Sasquatch too. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, tomorrow we're back on our usual time, 6:30 with Thomas Ferrano. I hope Ferrario. My name's right. And we're going to be talking about strange happenings in the Marley Woods. And rumor has it that there's been a lot of sightings of UFOs, cattle mutilations, and all kinds of stuff. In fact, the stuff that goes on in these particular woods, they're in Montana. The stuff that goes on in this particular set of woods is just as interesting as what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch. So it should be an interesting show to talk with this gentleman. He worked with another lead investigator on the cases, but he's done a lot of research into this. So he's going to be with us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. All right. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I know it's later than usual, but I think it was a good show. We had some audio, some audio issues, but the events in Canada, so up north, storms, all that. So, but at least we got through it. I wasn't bouncing in and off the camera like, something really bad going wrong. But I want to thank you all for coming. And again, if you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see, please hit that follow button and the like button. Okay. If you're watching from any of my pages on Facebook, and for that matter, you can find me on Facebook. You can find California Haunts on Facebook. You can also find me over at Instagram. I'm looking for followers over there under Ghosty Gal, all lowercase. And you can find me at TikTok under California Haunts. That's all lowercase. Okay. And we're also on Twitter. I'll get it straight yet. It's late. We're also on Twitter. Cal Haunts is what we're under Twitter. And also YouTube. There's an easier way to get a hold of us instead of just Googling California Haunts Radio on YouTube because it's hard to find us. What you can do is type in youtube.com/ampersand, that at California Haunts Radio. And you can find all our videos over there. Okay, anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming. I will see you all tomorrow. I'll put some contact information up and the book for Mr. Forth, and I'm going to call it a night. Okay, have a good evening, and here we go. Website, simonandshuster.com. There's a real nice profile about him there. And of course, the book is Between Ape and Human. And as he said, you can get that at Amazon.com. Anyhow, I will see you tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and have a good rest of your evening, you guys.